So Eve, you can find her, per Wikipedia, in Genesis, like the beginning. And she ate an apple off of a tree that a snake gave her.
We're talking women.
We're talking women.
We're talking about women,
The Bible.
The Bible.
the Bible,
Drama.
drama,
Drama about women in the Bible.
Drama about women in the Bible.
and everything in between.
And everything in between.
And everything in between.
Welcome to Women of Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is not a scholarly source.
Welcome to Women of the Bible.
Welcome to Women of the Bible.
Bienvenidos a las mujeres de la Biblia.
Are you going to take your sunglasses off?
No, I'm not. It's a whole vibe.
What an amazing woman, Eve. You know, she is our great-great-great-great-grandmother. She was the first woman of the Bible. She carried the image of God. She was the first creation, the first one of all of us.
So Eve was the first woman in the Bible, which is a pretty iconic title.
Eve. That's my girl. I love Eve. First of all, she is the mother of all living. And so I think that she just gets a really bad rap. We tend to blame Eve for pretty much everything bad that ever happens to us.
We love her. She's great, but she's also, the mother of the world. But also, I can't deal with how she just ransacked the whole plan. But, then fixed it, but ransacked it first. And then, God did what God does. But yeah, she's not that great, but she's great.
And I just think it's so, first of all, really discouraging in just the story of women that the very first woman that we encounter in the Bible basically creates the fall of man and then is therefore blamed for all sin for all of eternity, forever and ever and ever, no matter what. So I just want to pause there for a minute and just kind of rewind the tape. It's not all Eve's fault, guys. Little spoiler alert, Adam, you're a dirty bird, and you 100% are to blame too.
Hey guys, my name's Petey, and I first just want to thank you for inviting me to your 80s dance party. What is this? I'm just kidding.
Why is Petey here? Who invited Petey? Did we invite Petey?
I'm here to provide a more perspective from the man side, if you will. But I'm not here to ridicule, I'm here to uplift. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. Eve. If I had to picture her in my head, it'd have to be censored or blurred out because she's naked.
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was God in all of his magnitude, and he began to create.
So we have Yahweh, and he's creating the world, and he's like, you get a universe. Dominion, dominion, dominion. Here's what is going in the dominion. And so we get to, I think it's like, I don't know, Gina, what is it? Genesis 1. And God has created the world, and he's decided we're going to make humanity.
Now let us conceive a new creation, humanity, made in our image, fashioned according to our likeness.
Which is pretty cool because when he makes humanity, he gives them purpose and awesomeness and pets.
And let us grant them authority over all the earth, the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, the domesticated animals and the small creeping creatures on the earth.
And he makes humanity, and when he makes humanity, he decides that he's going to make man, which is pretty awesome. So he makes Adam, and then Adam needs a helper. And so he makes a helper, which is a woman. That's what we're calling her for this first half of this episode. Her name was Woman.
Sweet Eve.
The importance of the creation of Eve in understanding as a woman how we are made in the image of God. It's imperative in understanding that.
So God did just that. He created humanity in his image, created them male and female. Then God blessed them and gave them this directive. Be fruitful and multiply. Populate the earth. I make you trustees of my estate. So care for my creation and rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that roams across the earth.
So it's kind of like, in Snow White, when Snow White's in the forest and she's like talking to all the little animals. And they're like all her friends and they understand her and they have this like working relationship. So maybe, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe that was kind of Adam in the beginning and he had all his little animals, his furry friends. He named them all and they had a good working relationship. But Adam was still lonely and he still needed that extra spice in his life in many ways. And so God was like, I'm going to give him Eve.
Yeah, I mean, here's what a lot of people miss about the Adam and Eve story. often what happens is bad people, misinformed people, make the argument that because Adam was made first and then put to sleep and then his rib was pulled out and then that rib became Eve, that somehow makes Eve subordinate to Adam. The truth is, that's really not the case at all. In fact, fun fact, that same line that is used for that rib language is the same language in Hebrew that's used to describe the tabernacle, okay? So this has nothing to do with one being taken out of the other. Here's what it is. See, when God made Adam, which literally means just humanity, man, right? What happened is he made humanity in his image as one flesh. Okay? Follow me? Then what happened is that the Lord realized that Adam needed an Azer. And here's another. An Azer literally means a suitable helper. Now, often people who are bad and misinformed take the concept of suitable helper to mean that a woman is subordinate to a man and was given birth so that she could, be a helper to the man. Again, not the case at all. Because think of it like this. What once was one flesh has now been ripped into two. And the matrimony of those two things back together again recreates the one flesh image of God, original intent of the Lord. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to get married, okay? I'm not doing that. This is all metaphor here. But what I'm saying is, God is a God of unity, of oneness, of equality. He is not a God of insubordination to each other. Okay? What this means is that Adam and Eve, though created at different times, play equal roles, and not only equal roles, but they had to recognize that one couldn't exist without the other. They're suitable helpers. One needs the other. There are things that the woman could do that the man could not. There are things that the man could do that the woman could not. And therefore, the absence of one of them loses the one flesh of God's original intent. And so all of that's to say is that Eve, of course, is an essential part of the puzzle, literally just as important as Adam.
And so he creates Eve from Adam's rib, and it's all great, and they're married, and it's wonderful. And then in like the next sentence, we hit the fall of man, which is unfortunate.
Okay, so we find Eve and she's in the garden, and they have been given everything at this point that they need. They have everything that they need in this garden. Yet homegirl, for some reason, decided to go full Allie and become a vegan and start eating fruit from the tree that she shouldn't be eating from. And so what happens is she's just like, I don't know, staring at the tree, near the tree. I don't know why she was near the tree. Eve, or whatever your name is, why are you so close to a tree you're not even supposed to be at? Let's talk about that for a second. Why were you even there? Like, if I know I'm not supposed to be somewhere, you know where I'm not? By that place. I don't know. I'll just let that one for a second, let you process that one.
Of all the wild creatures the eternal God had created, the serpent was the craftiest. Now we're speaking from the serpent to the woman. He says, "Is it true that God has forbidden you to eat fruits from the trees of the garden?" And Eve says, "No, serpent. God said we are free to eat the fruit from the trees in the garden. We are granted access to any variety and all amounts of fruit, with one exception." I was waiting for the one exception. "The fruit from the tree found in the center of the garden. God instructed us not to eat or touch the fruit of that tree, or we would die." And the serpent says, "Die?"
Well, I don't know if she's talking to the serpent. Snakes are scary, but then if you don't know they're scary because they weren't scary yet, then she's probably like, "Oh, who's that guy? You are so pretty." But I don't know. I don't see Eve talking like that, really.
What? Okay, this is scripture, y'all. Okay, the truth is that God knows the day that you eat the fruit from that tree, you will awaken something powerful in you and become like him, possessing knowledge of both good and evil. The woman then approached the tree, eyed its fruit, and coveted its mouth-watering, wisdom-granting beauty. That's very descriptive. She plucked a fruit from the tree and ate. She then offered the fruit to her husband, who was close by, and he ate as well. Suddenly, their eyes were opened to a reality previously unknown. For the first time, they sense their vulnerability and rush to hide their naked bodies, stitching fig leaves into crude loincloths.
You know, we can look at Eve and say, yes, she made a bad choice, absolutely. But what we don't do is we don't look at the serpent as much as we look at Eve. So the serpent was the one who tempted Eve. And, the serpent chose to go against God. He wanted to be self-governed. And he wanted Adam and Eve to do the same thing.
Yeah, this girl went and got some leaves, put them all together, tried to hide her bits and pieces, and it was not a good look for her. Can you imagine how itchy that would have been? Like everywhere.
I sort of have mixed feelings about Eve. I'm like, okay, was her husband covering her and protecting her as the head of the household? I mean, where was he in all this when Satan is, tempting her? And I'm sure that one time wasn't the first time. I'm sure there were other times that Satan was working on her like he does all of us. And so, in a way, I sort of feel kind of sorry for her. I mean, I just feel maybe there was some neglect there, and so she fell into temptation. So I feel sorry for her. But when I was little and heard the story in Sunday school, I was like, man, she blew it. But I don't feel that way anymore as I've grown older.
And so here we find Eve questioning what Yahweh has actually said to her, which, can I just say, is really jacked up because, God is walking the garden with them. He's hanging out with them. They're besties. Besties. Yahweh is besties with Adam and Eve, and they're, hanging out in the garden, high five, playing Scrabble. I don't know what they did back then. Anyways, they're hanging out. And now, serpent guy is he didn't really mean half of that stuff he said. You can just eat the apple. It's not a big deal. And homegirl did. And she ate it, and then she gave it to Adam because, that's what we do when we make stupid decisions. We pass it on to our friends.
Sí, se dice mucho de eso. Si queremos ver esa parte, podemos hablar mucho de eso. Pero realmente yo prefiero ver la parte positiva. Prefiero ver el gran encuentro. El gran encuentro y como se le llama, la madre de la humanidad. O sea, ella es para mí un ejemplo, distraída, sí, porque nada tenía que andar haciendo, separada de su esposo o de Adán, que escuchó a la serpiente, sí la escuchó, y también no supo diferenciar o no entendió la magnitud de lo que la serpiente le decía, que le cambió lo que Dios había dicho. Es algo que nosotros debemos de aprender, a estar muy seguros de lo que escuchamos, porque de eso dependen muchas decisiones que nosotros tomamos.
And then it was just all downhill from there. And her boo was Adam, and they ran around the garden naked. And then God came back and he was like, who ate the apple? And Eve was like, not me. And then God was like, yeah, you're naked. And then she was like, I'm naked. And then they got in trouble. And so God was like, y'all got to go. And so they had to roam around this deserted land. And and so we're all in trouble because of Eve.
So just reset for a second and remind ourselves that both people partook of the apple. It takes two to tango. It took two to sin. It took two to create the fall of man. Eve is still my girl. She is the mother of all living. She is the reason that we are here. And she is honestly, in my opinion, one of the unsung heroes of the Old Testament. When you look through the life of Eve, yes, she's the one that encountered the serpent. She is the one that said yes first. But she also has nameless sons and daughters-in-law throughout the history of the Bible that we know went on to create nations that we never talk about. And in my mind, when I read the book of Genesis and I read all of the nations that she actually was able to birth, even through pain, even through the anguish of childbearing, which again doesn't mean what we've all been lied to and told that it means. I guess I should get to that now. The word anguish in the Bible actually can be translated to pressure, to put under pressure. So oftentimes women, since we're all girls here,
Yikes.
we know that monthly we get a period. And it sucks. And for some women, it's super, super painful. For some, you barely even know that it happened. Why is that? If Eve and her actions and her sinning is the cause of all of this pain for all women, for all time and all eternity, every month for the rest of our lives, why is it that some of us experience it and some of us don't? Because it's a lie that you've been told. Okay, so let's start there. The second thing, when it comes to childbearing, yes, it is painful, but what God told us is that, Adam, you will now have a hard time laboring the earth. And Eve, you're gonna have a really hard time in your labor as well. Well, her labor, her whole purpose was to birth nations, to create life. Adam can't do that. Eve could do that. So of course the serpent came to try to attack her.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way before.
And if you look through the whole story, the meta-narrative of the Bible, God redeems women again and again and again. Jesus' birth, his entire existence, sanctified and basically redeemed the act of childbearing, of labor, of pregnancy, something that was meant to be a curse, to hurt her, for women to have to labor through something and work even harder to bring life into the world. Jesus came and redeemed that because he came through this same way that everybody else had prior. All of those years, all of those generations that lay in between even Adam and the birth of Jesus, people were being born, pregnancies were happening, labors were happening, conception was happening all that time, but Jesus came through in the same canal, the same birth canal, that all of that had been happening through sin in all those generations. So I just want to say, Eve is not the villain of the Bible at all. She is actually the unsung hero. She's the reason that we exist, and we can look back to her for so many lessons. And so many ways, I think, that we can look at how God has redeemed the story of the woman, and really it starts with Eve. It starts there, and it hasn't ended yet.
Interesting perspective about Eve. I think about, had she ever known that her day and her stroll in the garden would end up kind of having all of us as mother, as cousins, as daughters? I don't think she ever knew that, but I just think that she was a legacy. She was the beginning of, when I look at genealogy, I'm a genealogist, love to talk about genealogy. She's the beginning. And so if I were to do her family tree, it would be a big one. But I think she represents strength for us. I think she represents a person who probably got a little bit of a bad rap, but I think we are who we are today because of her.
Eve, she started out really wonderful and then quickly kind of hit the fall, but after that, she still gets redeemed a little bit, and she's able to have, from her, really, she's the mother of everyone, and so she gets to have that redeeming quality, and even though she kind of committed the ultimate sin.
When I look at Eve, I can truly see how women are powerful and they have a voice, and what they do matters, but also how in the positive, when when you harness and cultivate what the gifts that God gives you, what that can do, and also when you are led astray, what that can do for humanity as a whole.
So it's so important to look at Eve and to understand our identity as a woman, that we are equal to God, we are important to God, we are his daughter, we are made in his image, and that is exactly what we should get from Genesis 1 through 3, really. What we should not get from Genesis 1 through 3 is that woman caused the fall of mankind, because that's not actually what happened. And so the serpent caused the fall of mankind. And so we look at that, and we have what we can gain from that as God's daughters is a very strong understanding and a strong foundation in our identity. Our identity is in our Creator, and it says that super clear in Scripture. So next time you feel like maybe you feel less than because you're a woman, or maybe you feel like it's a mistake that you're a woman, or maybe you feel like you can't accomplish things as much as men, or anything like that, we go back to what our Creator says about us, not what the world says about us, not what the enemy says about us. And what our Creator says about us is we are created in his image. We bear his name, and that is substantial. And so when we understand that, it is then that we have a a firm foundation of our identity that we can build other things on. And so if we start to build other things on a foundation that is not strong, on a foundation that is built on the terms and on the definitions of what the world says we are, that foundation is not going to be sturdy, and it's going to crumble when we start adding things to it. And so what we need to do, wipe that all clean. Go back to the beginning and understand that we are not a problem. We were created because God saw a need. You know what he said? God said that Adam needed a helper, so he sent a woman. He sent a solution to a problem. We were already a solution from the very beginning of the world. And so rest on that today. Understand that you were created to be a solution. You were created on purpose. You were created in God's image. Listen, let that sink in for a second. The creator of the universe created you to mirror him, to mirror him. Hold up a mirror today. I know we're all going to do it as women like 80 times today, right? And the next time that you do, look at it and pause and say out loud, I was created in the image of God. And that is the foundation of your identity.
And it's just amazing how the enemy came in the form of a serpent, and Eve trusted. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from Eve, is that she trusted in what she should not trust. You know, her trust needed to be placed on Jesus, on God, who had given her everything. And it doesn't sound just like us nowadays. You know, when we receive Jesus as our Savior, as our Lord, there's so many things that are open in our hearts and in the spiritual world, but also in our material, in every area of our lives. We are so blessed. And all God is asking from us is to trust him. Just trust him. That's it.
And people always like to hate on her. Like, she ruined it for us all. We had period cramps. We had painful labor, which all of those things are true. But I mean, we can't really know if we were in her scenario, if we would have done things differently. I like to think I wouldn't have, but I don't know if I don't know if I would have had, like, obviously the temptation was so great for her to want that apple or pomegranate or whatever it was. And if it was a pomegranate, the temptation was really great, because if you're in a garden and you're staring at pomegranates, like, they're so good. But obviously not worth bringing sin into the world. So there's that. But, you know, anyway, all that to say, I think she gets a bad rap, and I don't know if that's rightfully so. Like, I feel like Eve gets all the blame for sin being in the world. And yeah, I don't know if I'm not an Eve hater is what I'm trying to say. I feel like I maybe understand her.
So is she a weakling? Like, again, how do I feel about Eve? I don't know, because she should have been able to talk to Satan face to face and be like, nope, actually, I have orders and these are the orders. But she didn't. So it kind of, again, I have a love-hate with Eve, honestly. Full disclosure.
Okay, again, you're missing the point here. Now, first of all, the Bible does make mention that unfortunately Eve was alone.
But you should be able to be left alone.
What it has to do is it meant that the enemy knows that when humanity is isolated, he's going to come and get you. It had nothing to do with her and had nothing to do with her gender. It had everything to do with just the enemy striking in his craftiness. And it just so happened to be her, the mother of all things. You know, right? If you're going to strike, that feels like the right way to strike. And then, of course, Adam comes and partakes too. And so all of that to say, again, there's equality not only in exercising the goodness of God, but also, unfortunately, there was equal presence within the rebellious act of what occurred in the garden itself. And so there is no insubordination in this story. And oftentimes it's told that way. And I just want you to know from the perspective of a man that that is so wrong. And if anyone tells you that, you are allowed to punch them in the face. And if you do it and get in trouble, don't tell anybody I told you to do it.
I blame Eve for the fact that I have a lot of issues. It's her fault. And when we get to heaven and she's sitting on the bleachers by herself, we're going to have a talk.
So we find Eve kicked out of the garden. You don't really hear about her again, except for the fact that she has Cain and Abel.
Hey, when I think about Eve, I think about Eve when she was pregnant. I think about how she must have really felt alone. I mean, she had Adam there with her, but he couldn't answer any of her questions about what was happening to her belly, much less what was going to happen in the future in 9 months. I think about she had no mother to ask. She had no sister to ask any questions about what was going on with her body. She had no friends to tell her what to expect. And, I can only imagine how alone she must have felt, thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm about to give birth. What am I going to do with this baby? How am I even going to deliver this baby? But, I found such comfort when I read Genesis 4:1. And in Genesis 4:1, she says, with the help of the Lord, I brought forth a man. And so that showed me right away that, she was not alone. God was with her every step of the way. He was right there. And I would imagine that every question that she had, whether it was about, what was happening inside of her, what was to come, that God was right there answering all of those questions for her, because she wouldn't have been able to say, with the help of the Lord. And so it was with his help that she was able to bring forth Cain. And, I just find it so amazing that God has put in all of us women the ability, into our very DNA, the ability to carry and to give birth. And that's not just physically, that's spiritually as well. God puts within us dreams and visions, and then at the appointed time, he gives us the ability to give birth to those dreams and visions, and it's only with his help that we're able to do that.
Eso es lo principal, eso es lo importante de todos nosotros, a los creyentes, que creamos aquí adentro de nuestro corazón. Que creamos aquí adentro, que Dios está siempre con nosotros.
She goes on to have tons of kids. She's the mother of nations. She's like the mother of humanity. And she's cool. I love Eve. I'm not even mad at her. I used to say that if I get to heaven one day, I'm going to super band punch Eve, for, you know why. But I kind of feel bad for her. I respect her. I mean, no one knows what she possibly was going through, being the first female and then being named right after that. And I feel bad for her.
I would say that God is a great redeemer. He can take any situation. Like, we were ready, we were rolling, it's the brand new, everything is brand spanking new. We have, we take off all the bubble wrap and packaging, and it's like, here's the new world, and I've created this, 7 days, let's do this, and then you ruin it. He will continue to be God and just make everything, it just gives that true visual of all things work together. Even the mess works together for good.
Homegirl just wanted a bite of the apple. She did. And then my favorite part is, like so many of us do, she tried blaming her husband. Like, he did it too. Like, I've done that. Like, there's times where I'm like, yeah, I know we did that, but you participated, right? But I think the thing about Eve, though, is think about all of the things that she had to experience for the first time, and she had no one to look to. She had no woman as an example to even be able to say, is this how we do it? So I actually feel like she gets a bad rap, and I'm kind of mad that now we have to experience pain in childbirth. I'm not going to lie about that part. But you know what? I feel like had she have had someone to look to, like some of these other women as we get further in the story of the Bible, she would have been better off.
Yeah, the Sarai situation it's a complicated one. It would take an entire season of this show to really unpack the intricacies of that story.
Hold up. She had her half brother's baby? Is that right? Did I just hear that right? Hold. What in the West Virginia? This lady had her half brother's baby? Is this for real?